We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of the universe, and we thank Him for creating us, for guiding us, and then for rewarding us if we accept the guidance. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send His peace and blessings upon the best of His creation, His prophets, and the Imams, and the messengers, and especially the last of His prophets and our teacher and our guide, Abul Qasim al-Mustafa Muhammad. And upon the family of the Prophet and the Imams, and especially the Imam of our time. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tonight is the night of Arba'een, and Arba'een marks an official end to the official commemoration of Muharram and Ashura and the tragedies of Karbala. Obviously, it's an end to the commemoration, but it's not an end to the remembrance of Imam al-Husain alayhi salam. And the tragedy of Karbala and what happened to Imam al-Husain and those who were with him, which we commemorate from typically from the beginning of Muharram until the end of Safar or until Arba'een, it's a emotionally intense experience for all of us. And there are a variety of emotions that we experience as we remember Imam al-Husain, whether it's sadness or grief or anger, or in some cases it's joy or happiness. Because for instance, when you see how the companions of Imam Husain alayhi salam are steadfast, you feel happy. So it's a variety of different emotions, almost like a roller coaster ride that we go through from the beginning of the month, this period, and throughout the period. And when we reach the end of the period, when we reach Arba'een, oftentimes many of us think or feel, what is it I should do now? What is it that I have learned from Imam Hussein? What should I change? What does Imam Hussein want from me? And that's a very valid question, because otherwise if we don't think and we don't ponder and we don't do something about it, we haven't taken any value out of the experience. It becomes a ritual. Every year we get together, we remember Hussein, we cry, and then we move on. So when we ask ourselves, what did Imam Hussein alayhi salam want from me? What should I change? Of course, there are many answers, because the Karbala and Ashura is a university of lessons. But when you think about when Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, هل من ناصر ينصرنا هل من معين يعيننا, is there anyone to help us? The question comes, what does Imam Hussein want me to help him with? One of the ways of answering the question is going back to what was Imam Hussein alayhi salam's original mission. What did he set out to do? And one way of answering that is going to the letter that he left, or the will that he left for his brother Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyyah when Imam Hussein left the city of Medina. And in that letter, there is a statement that all of you are very familiar with, where Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, I have not started this journey as someone who is evil, as someone who wants to cause corruption in the world, or to cause disunity between the Muslims. Rather, I am starting this journey because I want to reform the community of my grandfather. إنما خرجت لطلب الإصلاح في أمة جدي أريد أن آمر بالمعروف وأنهى عن المنكر وأسير سيرة جدي رسول الله وأبي علي بن أبي طالب. So what Imam Hussein presents his mission. His mission, he says, is to reform the community and to enjoin the good and forbid the evil. آمر بالمعروف وأنهى عن المنكر. So let's take this opportunity to examine this Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar, And through this way, perhaps we can understand what Imam Hussein wanted us to do, and one thing maybe we able to apply in our lives. So we're going to examine al-amr al-ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar. And there are a number of questions that we are going to answer, inshallah, tonight with your help. One of them is, what is it? What is amr al-ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar? The second question, why is it important? The third question, what happens if we don't do it? The fourth question, what are the conditions of amr al-ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar? The fifth question, how should we do it effectively? And the last question, how do we overcome the most difficult challenges with doing amr al-ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar? So first of all, what is amr al-ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar that Imam Husain alayhi salam is talking about? Amr al-ma'ruf means, and I'm going to use this meaning going forward in English, enjoining the good. And nahy anil munkar means forbidding the evil. Enjoining the good means encouraging others to do good, promoting good actions. Forbidding evil means trying to prevent others from doing evil, discouraging others from doing evil. Now, Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar, these two actions often are together, and they are two duties of the Muslim. They are wajib, mandatory duties of the Muslim, and they sit among the 10 mandatory duties of the Muslim, commonly known as Furu' ad-Din, which include Salah, prayer, fasting, Hajj, Jihad, Khums, Zakat, and amongst them, enjoining good and forbidding evil. Now, enjoining that which is not wajib is mustahab. So let me define it a little bit here so we can have some clarity. Enjoining good is only wajib under certain conditions, which I will get into inshallah. Enjoining something, if those conditions are not there, then enjoining the good becomes mustahab. And inshallah we'll get into some more detail later on. But one of the things that unfortunately is lacking in our community, and perhaps Imam Husain alayhi salam, it was also lacking at the time, which is why he took on this mission, is we are good at praying. We are good at fasting. We fast the month of Ramadan. When we have the ability, we'll go to Hajj. We pray regularly. And there's not a lot of difficulty in doing these things. But unfortunately, our ability or our habit of enjoining good is weak. And weaker than that is the habit of forbidding evil. Because forbidding evil and enjoining good entails impacting our social network. Enjoining good and especially forbidding evil means I have to tell someone to do good. Now, what if that someone is too sensitive? What if someone is saying, why are you being so difficult? Why are you making my life so hard? Why? This is not your business. Why are you telling me what to do? And even more difficult than that is to go to someone and say, stop doing this. They might get angry. They might not talk to you. They might not, in our community will say, يزعل بعد ما يسلم عليك. Right? And so we get worried. And as a result, Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar becomes a habit that's very weak in our community. So let's get into why is Amr bil Ma'ruf important. Let's leave for 1 minute, let's leave religion. Let's talk about in general, in society. If we don't have enjoining the good and forbidding the evil, what happens? So what's enjoining the good in our society and forbidding the evil? Well, you think about it, you say, at school, what do we do at school? We teach children how to be good. So the teachers are teaching, they're enjoining good, and they're forbidding the evil. At work, what do? You teach people how to provide quality service and products. That's enjoining the good. What do the police officers do? They enjoy the good and forbid the evil. And so when you look at society in general, what you see is enjoining the good and forbidding the evil is essential for maintaining the well-being of society. What happens if you don't enjoy good or forbid the evil? What happens if our teachers don't teach properly? What happens if there's no police officers? Society falls apart. There's no control. People harm each other. The security and safety and health of people gets impacted. So this is from a secular perspective, not religious. When you look at it from a religious perspective, you see that encouraging others to do good and forbidding others from doing evil helps the Muslims one another ensure that they're being good, helps the Muslims watch out for each other, helps us teach each other, helps us remind each other, helps us keep each other on the right path. And that's why you see in Khutbah Al-Zahra, Fatima Al-Zahra alayhi salam, in her khutbah, there's a section where she describes the purpose of certain principles in the religion of Islam, or certain practices. And she refers to, when she mentions Al-Amr bil-Ma'ruf, she says, وَالْأَمْرُ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ مَصْلَحَةً لِلْعَامَّةِ. Amr bil, enjoining good is for the well-being of the general population. And further, if you look at Surah At-Tawbah, Surah number 9, Ayah 71, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala further describes the benefit of Amr al-Ma'ruf, where He says, وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. The believers, male and female, they are allies of one another. They are comrades of one another. They are supports for one another. How? يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. They enjoin good and they forbid evil. And by doing so, they help each other. So this is the importance of Amr al-Ma'ruf and Nahi al-Munkar. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it mandatory in order to establish these goals. Question number 3. What happens if we don't do it? What are the consequences of not doing Amr al-Ma'ruf and Nahi al-Munkar? First of all, there's a hadith from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, where he says, and many of you know this hadith, he's talking to his companions. And he says, لا تزال أمتي بخير ما أمروا بالمعروف ونهوا عن المنكر وتعاونوا على البر فإذا لم يفعلوا ذلك نزعت منهم البركات وسلط بعضهم على بعض ولم يكن لهم ناصر في الأرض ولا في السماء. The Messenger of Allah says, my community, my nation will continue to be in good condition, in good shape, as long as they enjoin good and forbid the evil, and they help each other towards righteousness. If they don't do that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take away the blessings from them. And He will make one of them rule upon the other, and they will have no helper in this world, in the earth, or in the skies. Means that they won't have a helper among themselves, nor is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala going to help them. Similarly, Imam Ali alayhi salam, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, لا تتركوا الأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر فيولى عليكم شراركم ثم تدعون فلا يستجاب لكم. Don't leave enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. Why? One of the consequences is that leaders will come upon you who will be evil, and you will ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help, and He will not answer you. Why? Because Allah is saying, enjoy the good and forbid the evil. If you don't enjoy the good and forbid the evil, it means people who are evil are going to be able to do what they want. And part of that would mean them having rulership over you, as we see in history, and as we see, unfortunately, not only across the world, but specifically in the Muslim communities, the Muslim nations. Many of the leaders are tyrants, perhaps because the Muslims are not doing this, are not taking care of themselves by enjoining good and forbidding evil. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, I'm creating a system, and part of the system is if you don't enjoin good and forbid evil, there are consequences. And one of those is that unjust, oppressive and evil rulers will rule upon you, and when you ask for help, it's too late because you lost the opportunity. Further, I'm going to share the story of Ashab al-Sabt. This story is in Surah Al-A'raf, Surah number 7, and it starts at ayah number 163. And we're going to look at what happened in this situation with those who did not do nahi an al-munkar, forbidding evil. Ashab al-Sabt, the Jews, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade them from doing certain things on Saturdays. And I think sometimes on Saturdays, if there are Jewish people living in your area, you'll see them. They're walking outside, they're not driving because they're not supposed to drive. They're not supposed to work on Saturdays. And a whole bunch of other restrictions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed on them. So in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَاسْأَلْهُمْ عَنِ الْقَرْيَةِ الَّتِي كَانَتْ حَاضِرَةَ الْبَحْرِ إِذْ يَعْدُونَ فِي السَّبْتِ إذ تأتيهم حيتانهم يوم سبتهم شرعا ويوم لا يسبتون لا تأتيهم كذلك نبلوهم بما كانوا يفسقون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says there was this community and they were near a body of water, a lake or an ocean. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on the day of Saturday, Allah forbade the Jews from working. And that included fishing. So you cannot fish on Saturdays. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we tested these people because on Saturdays, all the fish would come. So imagine, you're living beside this body of water, and on Saturdays, the fish come and you're not allowed to fish. And oftentimes, communities that live near water rely on what's in the water for their sustenance, business, food. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing them. So what did these people do? What they did was they tried to play or maneuver around the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a group of them, they said, okay, we can't fish. So they dug from the body of water a path and they created almost a big ditch or a big hole. So what happened, obviously, naturally, the water would come through this path, through this trench or river, into the ditch or the big hole they made. And so they essentially created a pond or a lake. So what happens when the water comes? The fish come. So the fish come, they enter, and they come to this lake created by some of these people. And what the Jews did was, on Saturday, the fish would come, then they would block the front of this river that they created, and so the fish is now stuck. Then it's Sunday, and they go and fish. So they maneuvered around the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah said, don't fish, and they created a way whereby, okay, they say, I'm not fishing, but they were able to capture the fish or limit them in a certain area, and the next day when they could fish, they fished. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls that transgression. The next ayah says, وَإِذْ قَالَتْ أُمَّةٌ مِّنْهُمْ لِمَ تَعِظُونَ قَوْمًا اللَّهُ مُهْلِكُهُمْ أَوْ مُعَذِّبُهُمْ عَذَابًا شَدِيدًا قَالُوا مَعْذِرَةً إِلَىٰ رَبِّكُمْ وَلَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. These Jews then became three groups. One of them was the group who did this. Another group was a group of more who refrained from this. They thought it was wrong. And the third group was those who refrained, but then they spoke out and they said, why are you doing this? This is haram. So this ayah says, the group, so three groups, one of them who did it and two who didn't. Amongst the two who didn't, one of the groups who refrained but didn't speak out, they said to the ones who spoke out, they said, why are you speaking out? لِمَ تَعِظُونَ قَوْمًا اللَّهُ مُهْلِكُهُمْ أَوْ مُعَذِّبُهُمْ. Why are you warning these people when Allah is going to destroy them or punish them? The response is, we're warning them so that we have an excuse in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when He asks us, did you warn them? So we said, yes, Allah, we warned them. You asked us to warn them, we warned them. The next ayah says, فَلَمَّا نَسُوا مَا ذُكِّرُوا بِهِ أَنْجَيْنَا الَّذِينَ يَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ السُّوءِ وَأَخَذْنَا الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا بِعَذَابٍ بَئِيسٍ بِمَا كَانُوا يَفْسُقُونَ. Allah says, afterwards, what did we do? We punished who? We punished those who did the act, and we punished those who didn't do the act but didn't speak up. And we saved those who spoke up. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this story, what He's telling us is, even if you don't do it, but you don't speak out, I will place you among those who did it. So when you don't do forbidding of evil or nahi anil munkar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying you're among those who did the act. So that's one of the consequences. In the story of Ashab al-Sabt. In addition, also in the Holy Quran, in Surah Al-Ma'idah, there's a very powerful ayah again that hits this point, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لُعِنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ على لسان داود وعيسى بن مريم ذلك بما عصوا وكانوا يعتدون كانوا لا يتناهون عن منكر فعلوه لبئس ما كانوا يفعلون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, there was a group from Bani Israel who Dawood, Prophet Dawood, David, and Isa, Prophet Isa, cursed. What does it mean cursed? لعنوا. It means, a curse means, it doesn't mean swearing. What it means is a curse when they say, oh Allah, curse these people, it means, oh Allah, don't have mercy on them. But this is a very powerful, very, very powerful statement. The curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one of the things that, between His curse and His wrath and His punishment, is a worst state to be in. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is a very harsh statement. If you look when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word la'na, where He curses or the Prophet curses, it's limited to very harsh situations. So here, these prophets, these great prophets, are cursing the Jews, Bani Israel. Why? Because they transgressed. What was their transgression? Transgression means you go beyond the boundaries of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What was the transgression? كانوا لا يتناهون عن منكر فعلوه. Their transgression was they did not forbid evil. Allah considers not forbidding evil, not doing nahi anil munkar, as a transgression that deserves His curse. Further, there's a hadith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again an example of what happens when we don't forbid evil, aside from the implications to the society, but from the perspective of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His pleasure versus His punishment. There's a hadith that it says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to Prophet Shu'aib. He says, He's told him, I'm going to destroy 100,000 of your people. 40,000 of them are evildoers, and 60,000 of them are believers. So Prophet Shu'aib said, Ya Allah, I understand the evildoers, punishing them. Why are you punishing them? Why are you punishing the 60,000 believers? And the response comes that they did not used to enjoin the good or forbid the evil. In another hadith, on the day of judgment, there will be a group of believers who will reach the gates of paradise, the gates of Jannah. But the gates will not open. And they will ask, why aren't the gates opening for us? Because they were believers, they practiced it. Salah, Sawm, Zakat, Hajj. And the answer will come to them from the angels or from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you used to not enjoin the good and forbid the evil. So that's question number 3. What are the consequences of not enjoining the good and forbidding the evil from a societal perspective and from the perspective of our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Question number 3. What are the conditions for Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar, enjoining the good and forbidding the evil, to become wajib? There are 5 conditions, and I'm going to touch on these, and there are a lot more details in the ahkam that you can go and look into later on. But I think these are important. So number 1, for enjoining the good and forbidding the evil to become mandatory, to become wajib, number 1, you have to know what is good and what is evil. So you have to know that certain action is good, so you can tell the person this is good, do it. Or certain action is haram, so you can tell the person haram, don't do it. If you don't know, it's not wajib on you. Now, it doesn't mean it's not wajib on you, it doesn't mean you can't do it. You can do it, you just don't have to. Number two, the other person needs to know that it's wajib or haram. If they don't know, enjoining the good or forbidding the evil is not wajib on you. Now you can go and teach them and say, by the way, did you know this is good? Once you teach them, then you can enjoin them. But if they don't know, you don't have to tell them. Number three, the person must intend to do it again. So if they did it, but they're not going to do it anymore, you are not required to enjoin the good or forbid the evil. Number four, there should be no possibility of significant harm to you or other Muslims. Significant harm doesn't mean that the person is going to frown on you. No, significant harm means, is the person going to hurt you? Is the person are you putting other Muslims at risk of harm? Then you enjoining the good or forbidding the evil is not wajib. And then the last of the conditions of enjoining the good and forbidding the evil is there are three steps. One of them, the first, is showing facial expression that reflects your feelings around enjoining the good or forbidding evil. So let's say someone in front of you is drinking. He's drinking alcohol. The way you would show an expression is you would become angry. That's facial expression that you're showing them I'm not happy. That's the first step. And that is a wajib step on everyone. The second step is to have a vocal response, is to speak. So you tell the person, this is haram. Why are you drinking? Do you not know this is haram? You shouldn't be doing this. That's the second step. If those are not effective, there's a third step that has its own conditions, which is physical. Physical force. Now, of course, someone's drinking in this society, you tell them don't drink and they keep drinking, you're not going to go hit them. However, though, let's say, for example, someone is very angry and they're becoming violent and they're going to hurt one of the believers, then yes, a few of us can go and hold that person back. That's physical force. Nahi anil munkar. So these three are the steps of nahi anil munkar and amr bil ma'ruf. Now that we understand these conditions, it's important to clarify that these are the conditions that make amr bil ma'ruf and nahi anil munkar mandatory, wajib. Doesn't mean that if these conditions don't exist, we don't have to do nahi an amr al-ma'ruf and nahi al-munkar. That we don't have to enjoin the good and forbid the evil. Question number 5. How do we do it effectively? So, enjoining the good and forbidding the evil can be very easy. I just need to tell someone, if I see someone who, let's say, it's salah time, or salah is going to become qada, and I know they haven't prayed, I'll tell them, brother, why don't you pray? It's important to pray, you should pray. It's easy. Or someone is doing, let's say, listening to music, and I say to the brother, listening to music is haram, it's not good, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden it, you shouldn't be doing this. But the question is, it's easy to do, but are we achieving the purpose? The purpose behind forbidding the evil and enjoining the good is that it has impact on the person. The purpose is that it's improving the condition of society. The purpose is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's His direction and His laws are being followed. That's the purpose. So when we do amr bil ma'ruf, when we do enjoining the good and forbidding the evil, we need to keep in mind the end. What's the end goal? Enjoining the good and forbidding the evil, yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it wajib, but is a means towards a goal. And the goal, as we described, is the well-being of society. The goal is for the mu'mineen, the believers, to watch out for each other, to help each other, to remind each other. So you want your enjoining the good or forbidding the evil to have an impact. So it's important for us to be both And I'm going to use two terms here, both tactical and tactful. What does this mean? Tactical means we should be careful in planning what we're going to do. And that when I'm going to take action, I'm going to respond and I'm going to enjoy the good, or forbid the evil in a certain case. I should think about it. Doesn't mean now I'm going to stand for 10 minutes and put together a plan in my mind. By that time, khalas, the action is done. The person has committed the evil. No, that's not what it means. What it means is that you keep in mind, how do I achieve the purpose? Should I speak? Should I just act? Should I frown? Should I do something that indicates this person that this is haram? Or should I go pray and he'll realize he needs to pray? So it's by action. So we need to be tactical. We also need to be tactful. Tactful means that we're thinking about the person. We're being sensitive to the person. What kind of person is it? What kind of age? What does the person know? How knowledgeable are they? Are they sensitive if I tell them? Should I tell them in a certain way? Should I tell them in front of people? Should I tell them in private? That's being tactful. So we need to understand. We need to think about, how am I going to do this, and how am I going to impact the person? And to better illustrate this, I'm going to mention three stories. Before we go to those stories, though, this is reflected. What I've described here is reflected in the ayah in Surah Al-Nahl, ayah number 125, where Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbik bil hikmah." Call to the way of your Lord with wisdom. Be wise. If you want to be impactful, be wise. So the first story I want to share with you is a story of the days of Imam Rida alayhi salam. So, as you know, Imam Rida was forced by Ma'mun al-Abbasi, who was the ruler at the time, to become his successor. What Ma'mun was trying to do was, he was trying to legitimize his rulership by having Imam Rida alayhi salam with him. So that people see, oh, Imam Rida is with Ma'mun, Ma'mun must be good. Just like Yazid wanted to force Imam al-Husain to pledge allegiance to legitimize his rulership. Now, Ma'mun didn't ask Imam Rida for allegiance, but he forced him to become his successor. So Imam Rida alayhi salam took this opportunity, just like his fathers did, to do Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar. And his doing of Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar was what frustrated Ma'mun and caused Ma'mun to tell Imam Rida, "Khalas, go. I don't want you to be my successor anymore. Go back to Medina." One of the instances that Imam Rida alayhi salam, where this is very evident, is one time Imam Rida was in the presence of Al-Ma'mun. And there was also the leaders of the government, so the chiefs of Ma'mun, and they brought a man who had just stolen. So he had stolen something that he needed. So this man came, and it seems like this man had the signs of a believer. He had signs of sujood. Maybe he had a beard, or was dressed in a certain nice way, or maybe he, had nur coming out of his face. So it was visible. It seemed that this person was a practicing person. So when this person, they brought him in front of Ma'mun, for Ma'mun to judge and perhaps punish him. First thing Ma'mun said was, he used words saying, like, what is this? You look like a believer, and you're coming here, you stole. And you shouldn't. What have you done? So the man said, I was forced. In other words, it's allowed when you don't have money to, for example, buy food. It's allowed for you to, and you're dying of that hunger, it's allowed for you to steal enough food to save yourself from death. And then you have to repay. When you're able to, you repay the person you stole from. So this is the only, or one of the only cases where stealing is halal. So this man is saying, like, I had no choice. And Ma'mun said, nonsense. I'm going to apply the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on you. Now what's the rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when someone steals? Is the cutting of the fingers, right? So the man then said, listen to the audacity of this man. He said to Ma'mun, now remember, Ma'mun is not only the leader, he's a tyrant. very easy for him to kill. So he said to Ma'mun, he said, you purify yourself and then purify me. So what's he saying? He's saying, you who hold the wealth of the Muslims and the money of the Muslims and take tax from Muslims, you're the one who has stolen the money of the Muslims. So you punish yourself, purify yourself before you punish me. So Al-Ma'mun looked at Imam Rida and he said, what do you say, O son of the Messenger of Allah? So Imam Rida alayhi salam says, the man is saying, Sarakta fasarak. You stole, Ma'mun, so I stole. Al-Ma'mun became very angry. And some of the historians say it was in this situation that Ma'mun decided, Khalas, I'm going to kill Imam Rida. I have enough. So he became very angry. Then he said to the man, Wallah, I swear by Allah that I will cut your hand. So I'm going to apply the punishment. So the man then said, how will you punish me when you're my slave? So Ma'mun said, what do you mean? The man said, your father, your mother was bought by your father as a slave. So he bought her. At the time, there were slaves where you would buy. So he's telling you, your father bought your mother as a slave. And he bought her using the funds of the Muslims, the money of the Muslims. And I'm of the Muslims. So I am a shareholder. I'm a part owner of the slave. So you being the son of the slave, you are a servant, you're a slave to me. So how are you going to punish me? So Al-Ma'mun looked at Imam Rida and said, what do you say, O son of the Messenger of Allah? And Imam Rida says, Lillahi al-hujjatul baligha. He said to him, in other words, he's telling to Allah belongs the ultimate argument. In other words, this man has put forward an argument. You put forward an argument if you have one. Al-Ma'mun became very angry and he said to the man, go. So Imam Rida alayhi salam, when you look here, this is one of the examples where Imam Rida alayhi salam is being very direct with Ma'mun. Now why is he being very direct? Because Ma'mun understands. He's not ignorant. Many consider Ma'mun, compared to the other tyrants that were before him and after him, as somewhat learned, like he understood. So Imam Rida spoke to him directly, using the word Sara, thief. Very direct forbidding of evil. So in this example, you see that there are certain cases where you should be direct. There's no need to beat around the bush. There's no need to try to be sensitive to a person. Because the person understands what they're doing, they understand it's haram. The second example I want to share with you. Please let's recite the better salawat.
الخارجة على حب الزهراء وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها بأعلى أصواتكم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
The second example is from the time of Imam Kadhim alayhi salam, and you will see this is a completely different approach, completely different scenario. And what I'm trying to highlight is that there are different scenarios for enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. In order for us to be successful, we need to be smart about and clever, tactical and tactful about how we do it. So, and this is a very famous story. Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam was one time walking, and it was the night time, and he walked by a house where there was a party. So there was music, singing, there was drinking, and this house was a house of a man known as Bishr. And so Imam alayhi salam, when he reached near the house, one of the servants of that house, she came out and she was throwing out the garbage. So Imam Kadhim alayhi salam stopped her. In other words, he started talking to her. And he asked her, he said, is the owner of this house a free man or a slave? She said, he's a free man. Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam said, I thought so. Because if he was a slave, he would have been worried about his duty towards his Lord. So the Imam went, and this woman went back inside. When she went back inside, Bishr said, "What took so long? Why did you take so long?" So she said to him, "This man stopped me, and this is what he told me." So these words, Bishr, and I think the hadith says Bishr at the time was drinking. These words hit Bishr so precisely in his heart, like it really went into him, that Bishr immediately said, "What am I doing? He's right. If I'm a slave of Allah, I would be careful of my duty towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala." Look at the words of the Imam, how he carefully selected them, and how Bishr was immediately impacted. So what did Bishr do? Immediately he ran out of the house looking for the Imam, and he ran out bare feet until he reached the Imam, and he asked for forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and from the Imam, and Bishr became a completely different person. And in the history, he's known as Bishr al-Hafi. Bishr, the barefooted. Completely turned around human being. So in this example, what you see is Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. There's no difference between Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam and Imam al-Rabah. Just the name. Otherwise, the actions, the way they act is all the same. But the scenario is different. So Imam al-Kadhim, in this case, he's using a different approach. He didn't go inside the house. He didn't say this haram, don't do it. But he used a statement and he used an action that was effective. It was nahi al-munkar, and it was effective in achieving the goal, in changing this person's behavior. The third example I want to use is a story from a scholar who says one time there was a man who was sitting near the haram of Imam Husain alayhi salam, outside, and it was the days of Ramadan, so people were fasting. This man, though, he was smoking during the day, Ramadan, and he's outside the shrine of Imam al-Husain alayhi salam, and he's smoking. So a man goes up to him, very angry. He says to him, "Are you a Muslim?" And this person who's smoking, he also got angry and said, "Don't," as being defiant. And he said, "Yeah." And the other person said, "Of course you're not, because if you were, you wouldn't be smoking in the month of Ramadan and here." And he walked away. So that man was angry. Now this guy who was smoking also became angry, and he kept smoking in defiance. The scholar says that I went and I said to him, "Look, brother, I know that man was very angry, and I know you're a Muslim, and I'm not going to ask you why you're smoking, because you may have a reason. Maybe you're a traveler, right? I don't know. However, because out of respect for Imam Hussain alayhi salam, you're near his shrine, and being in the days of Ramadan, I think you should put out your cigarette." So this man was so impacted by the statement, perhaps out of respect also and love for Imam Hussein, he put out the cigarette. How did he put it out? He put it out on his own skin. So the words of this scholar to this man in forbidding that evil were so powerful that it not only stopped the action, but the man even punished himself for doing it. So you see that in order for us to be effective with enjoining the good and forbidding the evil, we need to consider the scenario, we need to consider the person, and we need to consider the ultimate goal of us enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. The last question: how do we overcome some of the biggest challenges of enjoining the good and forbidding the evil? We said that often these actions are the most difficult for us because it impacts our relationship with people. Because if I'm telling someone to do something that perhaps they might get uncomfortable, they feel embarrassed, and even more difficult is telling them to stop doing something that's haram. And in that case, they might become angry, they might become further embarrassed, they might not talk to us, they might stop coming to the masjid. And as a result of that, we hesitate. We hesitate because we're afraid of that impact. We're afraid that, if there's a group of people who are doing something and they're all my friends and I tell them stop doing this, do I now become less of their friend? Do I lose that sense of belonging? Am I going to be sort of alone? These are things that make it difficult for us to do Amr al-Ma'ruf and Nahi al-Munkar. And perhaps the best example of overcoming this challenge, because this I think is one of the biggest challenges that is making it difficult for us as Muslims to do these two acts. One of the best examples is going to Imam Husain alayhi salam. Because he, as we started with in his journey, he said, my mission is to reform the community of my grandfather, and I'm going to do that by enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. And if you see what he did, is he put that as his top priority and gave up everything else. And he experienced the biggest obstacles, the most difficult challenges. I mean, you and I, when we want to forbid the evil, are you going to run into an army of 30,000 who want to kill you? So the most difficult obstacles he ran into, but he did it in such a way that there are lessons for us to learn on how to do Amr Ma'ruf and Nahi Anil Munkar and overcome the challenge. So let's talk about this for a few minutes. What if we ask Imam Husain alayhi salam, how were you able to do Amr Ma'ruf and Nahi Anil Munkar given all of what you were facing? And the answer is in one of his statements, where he says, هون علي ما نزل بي أنه بعين الله. He says, given, we say to Imam Hussein, look at all these difficulties, all that you went through throughout the trip, sending Muslim, then the people of Kufa betraying Muslim, and then you starting losing some of your companions, and then getting to Karbala with less companions, and then being withheld from no water, no food, and all of the disgraceful statements that were put towards you, and the killing of your family and companions, all of that. Imam Hussein says, what made it easy for me, and this statement is on Day of Ashura, is that Allah is watching. So this is very powerful. Allah is watching. What does it mean? What does it mean Allah is watching? It means Imam Hussein has trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's depending on Him. He's relying on Him. That nothing else matters except that Allah is watching. And that Imam Hussein has a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That all he cares that Allah is watching. Else, nothing else matters. What can we take from this? First of all, in order for us to have such a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in order for Imam al-Hussein and similarly all of the Imams and Prophets to have this type of connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they made sure they had to give up another connection. What's the other connection? They have to make sure that they do not have a connection with the dunya that's too strong. Money, material, house, car, family, these are all things from the dunya. And in order for us to have that strong connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the connection with the dunya needs to be a weak connection, in the sense that we don't care if we lose things, if it's for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't care if we lose some money. We don't care if I lose a house or a car for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I lose family for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what Imam is saying. That's that disconnection from the dunya. We're not saying that you don't enjoy it. No, we're saying don't have a strong connection. That if you lose something, all hell breaks loose and you're depressed. Imam Hussein alayhi salam further amplifies this when he says, again on the day of Ashura, إلهي تركت الخلق طرا في هواك وأيتمت العيال لكي أراك. So Imam Hussein in this statement he says, Ya Allah, I have left the creation in your love towards you, and I have made my family orphans so that I may meet you. So if you're going to cut me up with the swords, my heart will still be directed towards you. So what's Imam Hussein saying? He's telling us that I have given up everything. I have given up even my family because for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when he goes Amr al-Ma'ruf and nahy, well, for us when we enjoy the good, forbid the evil, if we're worried, oh, like I'm going to lose this friend, or he's going to feel bad, or maybe this person won't like me, or so on, that of course will discourage us from doing it. So we have to loosen that connection we have with these things of the dunya and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a hadith from Imam Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam where he says, as part of the hadith, he says, من أصلح ما بينه وبين الله أصلح الله ما بينه وبين الناس. When you take care, when you reform, when you make sure it's good, your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will take care of your relationship with the people. So that's number one. For us to make it easier for us to enjoy the good and forbid the evil, we have to make sure we're not connected to the impacts in this dunya that enjoining the good and forbidding the evil will have upon us. The second lesson we can take from this is that Imam al-Husain alayhi salam, in this trust and reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the connection that he had with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that enabled him to do enjoining the good and forbidding the evil in this manner, one of the things that allowed him to do it was his prayer. His prayer, his dua, his supplication. And you see that very evident in the tragedy of Karbala and Ashura. One of the examples is on the night of Ashura. On the night of Muharram, the army came to Imam al-Husayn and they wanted to start a battle. Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam, his response to them was, give us one more night. Why? Is he afraid of death? No, he's not afraid of death. The next day they were going to die. He said, because we'd like to spend the night in prayer and worship and dua. I want to spend another night with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want to pray. I want to speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does that do? It strengthens that relationship. Because salah for the mu'min, as in the hadith, is like the mi'raj, is like you're ascending. It should be like you're ascending to the heavens. It should be a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you have multiple times a day that strengthens you, that you seek Allah, the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Imam al-Husayn, the second tool, the means that he used, that should be a lesson for us, is that when our salah, if we establish it properly, it should strengthen us. It should encourage us so that we do not hesitate to enjoin the good and forbid the evil. And then the third thing that we can take amongst the many things of Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam is the patience and perseverance. The patience and perseverance of Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam in Karbala and on the day of Ashura. Many examples that you can go through to evaluate this patience. Even when he was alone and he was fighting, you hear in the Maqtal where it said that some of the enemies would say, we can't believe how he has so much energy and so much passion and so much strength after having been through what he had been through and seeing his friends and family and baby all being slaughtered. Patience and perseverance. For us, we need to make sure that we're in a mindset that the reality is, when you're a believer, you're going to encounter difficulties. Oftentimes, we don't have that in mind. So when we run into difficulties, we say, Allah, what is this? It's so hard. Allah didn't promise you it's going to be easy. Allah said it's going to be hard. The believers, if you look at the prophets, if you look at the Imams, how much they go through. Why they go through it? It's not a punishment. It's a reality of the world. And it's a lesson for us that if you're a believer, when you're going to enjoin good or forbid the evil, yeah, there might be harm. There might be, some people will frown at you. People might say, oh, this guy is extremist. This guy is, he's too religious, too much. He's too difficult. No, it's not too difficult. I'm trying to help you, telling you to do something good. And that's my responsibility towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we have a mindset that this is the life that is supposed to be no problems, if I'm good, it's going to be like Jannah, and there should be no difficulties, that is not at all what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or the Prophets or Imams are preparing us for. So if you have a mindset that says, you know what, I'm going to incur difficulties. That's the reality. The mu'min will incur difficulties. Life is not easy. Everyone else is not a mu'min. If I have that mindset, it's easier for me to be patient. Because when the difficulty comes, I say, oh, I was expecting it. No problem. Alhamdulillah. All good. But if it's unexpected, that's where it's difficult for us. We get angry, depressed, we get discouraged from doing it again, from enjoying the good and forbidding the evil. So Imam al-Husain alayhi salam, he knew, he was trained to go through difficulties from his young age. So when he encounters difficulties, you notice, it's very easy for him. Emotionally, it's difficult. But from the perspective of his resolve and his perseverance, he makes it easy. And that's the lesson that we need to take from Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And the prayer and patience is also further emphasized in two ayat that I'm going to share. One of them is in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 45. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ. And seek help through patience and prayer. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, in your life, seek help through patience and through prayer. Many times, the Prophet, the Imams, when they would encounter a difficult situation or a difficult decision, they would go do wudu and pray and then deal with it. وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ. Seek help through salah and patience. And the second ayah is in Surah Al-Luqman, ayah number 17, where it's very interesting that Luqman, and the Quran presents Luqman as a wise person. Luqman puts this all together in one ayah. He says, advising his son, Ya bunay, aqim as-salat, wa'amur bil-ma'ruf, wanha 'anil munkar, wasbir 'ala ma asab. Inna dhalika min azmi al-umur. So he says to him, he says, O son, establish prayer. Establish prayer is not saying pray. Establish means do properly. Establish prayer and enjoin good and forbid evil and be patient as to what befalls you. Surely that is one of the most difficult matters to do. Now, if you look at the order here, it's also very interesting. Luqman is saying, he's not only saying do all these things, but he's saying pray. Perhaps the order has some wisdom here. Pray, yani start with prayer. Seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Seek strength from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Enjoin good, forbid evil, and then be patient. Be patient as to what befalls you. In other words, don't be surprised. Be prepared that when you do enjoining the good, forbidding the evil, you'll have to be patient. There'll be some difficulty. So, if we take some of these, establishing connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's a lot stronger than our connection with this world. The people, the material, the impacts that I might have, the difficulties. And seeking help in salah, ensuring my salah is strong, and using that as a way for me to get strength, for me to get strength from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then being prepared to be patient, training myself to be patient. With these, inshallah, we will be able to overcome the challenges of being able to do enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. Enjoining the good and forbidding the evil, not doing it has many impacts. And we talked about some of the benefits, and we talked about the consequences in terms of the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the reality is some of the biggest impacts is to our communities, is to each other, is to our families. If we're not enjoining good and forbidding evil, what it means is those who we love, those who we care about, the general, all of the believers, they are not being impacted. Who else is going to tell them to do good or not to do evil? And there's a hadith from the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who you all know, which this hadith you are all very familiar with, where he's talking to his companions, where he says, كيف بكم إذا فسد نساؤكم وفسق شبانكم ولم تأمروا بالمعروف ولم تنهوا عن المنكر. How will you be if your women become, um, they transgress, and your youth become corrupt, and you do not enjoin good and forbid the evil. So the companions asked, وَيَكُونْ ذَلِكَ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ? Really? Is that going to happen? Yani, we don't enjoin good and forbid the evil? The Messenger of Allah says, نعم وشر من ذلك. Yes, it will happen. In fact, it'll be worse. كيف بكم إذا أمرتم بالمنكر ونهيتم عن المعروف? How will you be if you enjoin the evil and forbid the good? In other words, the opposite. The Messenger of Allah is saying there's going to be a time when the believers will enjoin the evil and forbid the good. So the Messenger of Allah, the companion says, the companion said, Ya Rasulullah, وَيَكُونْ ذَلِكَ? Really? Is it really going to happen? The Messenger of Allah replies, says, نعم وشر من ذلك. Yes, and even worse than that. كيف بكم إذا رأيتم المعروف منكرا والمنكر معروفا? How will you be if you see the good as evil and the evil as good? In other words, that's the worst case. In the first case, you didn't enjoin good or forbid evil, which is a wajib, which is a mandatory duty upon you. In the second case, you started telling people to do, you enjoined the evil and forbade the good. Now you might still have believed the good to be good. In the third case, you actually believed the good to be evil and the evil to be good. So the Messenger of Allah is warning his companions that there will be a time where this will happen. For us, that's a warning to us. Because if you look around, in some cases, unfortunately, we see, or parts of people in our community see certain evil acts as good, or good acts as evil. And that's why it's difficult for us to enjoin good and forbid the evil. Because they think the evil is actually good. So for us, we need to ensure that we are abiding by this mandatory requirement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just like salah, we take care of, we give it attention. Saum, we take care of, fasting. Hajj, other requirements, we consider. This is just as important. To enjoin the good and forbid the evil, and to do it in a way that's tactical and tactful, clever, so that we achieve the impact. And inshallah, by doing so, we are not part of this group that the Messenger of Allah is describing. And by doing so, we can be amongst those who the Imam of our time is pleased with. And by doing so, perhaps we will make the conditions such that it makes it easier for our Imam to appear. And perhaps by doing so, we can be the companions of our Imam. For we always say that we wish we were amongst the companions of Imam Husain. This is the path of Imam Husain. Amr al-Ma'ruf and Nahy al-Munkar. This is what he set out to achieve. So we can be of the companions of Imam Husain through Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam. And perhaps through that, we can be part of this group that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Imran, Ayah 104, وَلْتَكُنْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. There should be from amongst you those who call to good, to call to righteousness, they enjoin good, they forbid evil, and it's those who are successful. And perhaps by enjoining good and forbidding evil, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can consider us amongst those that He describes in Ayah 110 of Surah Al-Imran, كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. You were the best nation that was brought upon humanity. Why? What made the Muslims the best nation? Allah doesn't say here Salah or Hajj. He says you enjoined the good and forbade the evil and believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this being the night of Arba'in, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to be truly Husainiyun, that we can take, especially from enjoining the good and forbidding the evil, taking this and making it a habit. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us strength to be able to do this and to be able to do it effectively and successfully. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect our Imam and hasten his appearance and make us of those who are his companions and his supporters. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept all of the prayers of those who are in need, those who have asked for our prayers. And we will end with the recitation of Surah Al-Fatiha for the thawab of those who have passed away from our families and from the organizers and from those who no one remembers. And before it, salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. نعم.
اللهم صل على محمد. بالآية الكريمة ولتكن منكم أمة يأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر، كأنها تشير أن واجب الأمر بالمعروف هو واجب كفائي.
نعم.
إذا فعله الآخر سقط عن الآخرين. لنفترض أنه واجب كفائي. فبالنسبة لأصحاب السبت لما ذكرت حضرتك أنه كانوا ثلاث فئة كانوا يحتالوا يحسوا السمك يوم السبت ليصيدوه يوم الأحد، الله غضب عليهم. وفئة ثانية نصحوهم وأمروهم رجعهم، وفئة ثالثة كانوا متفرجين كمان الله حطهم مع غضب عليهم. فكيف نسبة هذا القول مع القول انه شيء كفائي؟
اكو فرق بين العلماء على انه شنو هو الكفائي وشنو هو العيني. بالنسبة للسيد السيستاني يقول انه واجب عيني، انه اول خطوة اللي هي انت في وجهك تراوي انه انا مرضي، هذا واجب عيني بالنسبه للسيستاني. والقول واجب عيني، بس الفعل باليد واجب كفائي. بالنسبه لباقي او بعض الفقهاء لا، يقول لك كله واجب كفائي. اذا واحد مثلا تكلم انت ما يحتاج تتكلم. اصحاب السبت ما اعرف شنو ذاك الايام شنو الاحكام، بس هاي بالنسبه
نفرض انه مثلا انا في عندي اخي مثلا انا او جاري او صديقي بنته عم تروح على المدرسه او الجامعه غير محجبه، فانا لانه اخي او جاري او صديقي من واجبي اني انصحه، قلت له يا اخي مؤمن ستر بنتك الله يهديك. اذا انا نصحته مثلا ما سمعني، هل واجب على كمان اخي المجاور ينصحه؟ وشفتني انا عملت هالشيء ونصحته، هل يكفي هو اللي شافني ولا لازم كمان يحاول؟ يعني هي مساله الواجب.
اي هو حسب فهمي، وممكن مثلا الشيخ حمامي يوضح، بس هذا حسب فهمي يكون هذا القول واجب عليك وواجب عليه بالنسبه لرئيس السيستان.
جزاك الله خير.
بالنسبه للتعليق اذا بالنسبه لاصحاب السبت موقفهم الفئه الثالثه، يعني الفئه اللي سوت منتين منها والفئه اللي حاولت ان تبين الخطا ايضا مفهومه، هاي موقفها سلبي. يعني هم مو بس خلوه او ما سووا الشيء هذا زين، يعني قاموا يهبطون الناس اللي عندها امكانيه ان تصلح